Welcome to the A-Train Show. And now here's your host, the A-Train, Arlington Lane.
Welcome to this edition of the A-Train Show, the A-Train Arlington Lane. Coming up on the program today, I got with me in store, got a great guest. You know I have to do this every time I come on the show today, or every time I do my show. Great guest coming in from Bally Sports Network, ladies and gentlemen. It's a national NBA insider, and he has great guests on his program's columnist. As you can see, he's formerly the co-host of Nets Slamming Planet. I got to talk a little bit about that. And then he's a former CBS Sports Radio columnist and host. Ladies and gentlemen, on the program today, riding the train is the one and only Brandon Scoop B. Robinson. Brandon, good afternoon to you. How you doing today?
What's the word, Chief? I'm good. How are you?
Man, you know, when I ain't gonna be honest, I was totally forgot that we was doing this today because I've had so much stuff going on already, and I was like, I get a message, yo, we still recording today? Yeah, we got it. We gonna record. And I was sitting there, I was like, let me go ahead and set this stuff up there, man. I got to get everything together because I was just did a show and whatnot, and so let me go ahead and bring this out. And get my man Scoop B on the A-Train show too, man. And glad to have you as always. And you're over at Bally Sports. You've been there now for over a year now. Is that right?
Almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years.
Wow. That's crazy, man. And things been going fast, you know, over there at Bally Sports, man. It's, you know, yet growing and rising, and you doing your thing over there. Tell our listeners a little bit how you got the job over at Bally.
Prayer.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, prior to you talked about stuff I did when I was a kid. I'm proud of that, which is cool. I started in the industry at 12, but what I'm really proud of is the journey. Prior to that, probably after grad school in 2011, when I finished at Hofstra, I was freelancing at one point at like 13 different publications, anything from Slam to the West Orange, New Jersey Chronicle, East Orange, New Jersey Record, Queens Times Ledger, Brooklyn Courier, around there. And essentially what happened was just, you know, the relationships. You're waiting for the freelance money to come into the mailbox, and you're figuring out what's the next steps. I was at the Source magazine for a little while, working and not getting a check, but used that opportunity to really build relationships. And then along came CBS Radio, you know, where I was there for about a year and some change, and kind of just moved around different places. That's the goal. I'm going to move around and different places. And, you know, Heavy.com was where I was before I was at Bally Sports. And, you know, got to a point where I wanted a little bit more. You know, when you write and you do different things, 1099s do cost you something on the back end tax wise. So, you know, the leap of faith, left there, and you know, posted something on social media that I had left Heavy. And the very next day, I got a call from a good friend of mine at Bally Sports, and I know that there were some other people that they were heavily considered. Some people that were more senior than me, older than me, and what's for you is what's for you. And you know, I've been there for a while. And Bally Sports is a cool place. You know, it's formerly Fox Sports, the regional brand. I'm on the national side of it. And, you know, we do good work at Bally Sports. And I'm so happy to have such a good support staff. My producer, Rick, and a bunch of other people that are there that really make things seamless and easy. And my production team as well.
That's amazing, man. And I've been seeing the work that you've been doing on social media. You've also had guests outside of the basketball realm, and I got to ask you, so far as you've been doing this with Bally, what's been your favorite guest that you've been able to talk to when you do your segments?
Well, the cool thing about, you know, my deal with Valley is, going into that situation, I also have partnerships with Bovada, as well as Spotify, as well as Zenni, the glasses company, the official glasses company of the Chicago Bulls. And so, with my partnership with Bovada, I've been able to make some things happen more recently. The rapper Chameleon, she's also on the TV show Rap Shit on the HBO, It's a Race show. And we sat down the other day, and then, I did something with Mark Henry, WWE Hall of Famer, AEW host, Mark Henry over at Bovada. And then Spotify, we do something weekly. The new season of Scoopy Sources on the Spotify Live app begins October 15th. So I've been able to do a lot of different things. And even with Bovada specifically, sat down with Jim Jones, my Harlem brother, as well as Ed Lover, as well as just a bunch of different people that I find interesting. My partnership with Bovada has allowed me to do stuff outside of, outside of just basketball and sports at large. But even within Valley, basketball is my primary responsibility. But over the last few months, I've sat down with Manny Ramirez. And Debo Samuel's agent, Tori Dandy, as well. So we kind of mix it up, but basketball still gets done. We find a way to move and groove within that lane. But lifestyle, culture, fashion are things that interest me as well.
That is Brandon Scoopy Robinson, Valley Sports Network, NBA insider. And as you can see, he does a plethora of other projects for other various companies and does a wonderful job with some of the conversations that he has. I was very in tune when you had the conversation with Mark Henry about potentially Dwight Howard becoming a WWE wrestler. And like, when you're talking with these people, man, it's like, do you try your best not to fan out when you get a great guest on your programs?
The good thing about, I think, this industry, for me, is relationship building. Mark is someone that I do consider a friend. Outside of interviewing, we do talk. So for me, I text him probably about a week or two before we did the sit down, and I called him maybe a half hour, 45 minutes before. He says, "What are we talking about today?" And I told him, I said, "Hey, man, it's going to be just a conversation, but I got some questions." And he laughed. And then, we sat down, we knocked it out. It was about a 35, 40-minute interview. And the cool thing that I think Mark and I have in common is that we love basketball. He wrestles, but I think for him, he's so in tune to not just wrestling. I think he got his hands in a lot of different things. And I find that, even people that I sit down with that are not basketball people by nature, like, wrestling for me in the 90s was something that I enjoyed as well. WWE Hall of Famer Jeff Jarrett is somebody I consider a friend. We chat from time to time, and we end up talking about basketball some way in shape or form. So the love of the game is there, and even if it's not basketball, if it's music, if it's a food, if it's an experience. I think sometimes what I will say to you is you take a step outside of yourself, and you're like, wow. I'm here, I'm having a conversation with this person. There are people who would love to be in the position you're in. You're thankful for the position you're in, but you also have to remind yourself that it's still a job. It's still, it's still getting things done. But, after it's over, maybe you do sit down, grab a bite to eat, or you get somebody's, username on PlayStation and you play 2K or Madden or Turtles against somebody on PS5 or what have you. You find a way to still, I don't know if this is a word, but you still find a way to make the relationship last a little longer. Sometimes when you have that Slurpee drink from 7-Eleven, you put a little rum in it to make it last a little longer. In that same vein, I'm thankful for the position I'm in, but it's still a job, and you just find that balance.
No doubt about it. And for those that want to get into that in your field, what is the biggest thing that they have to remember when you're getting into this industry? Because they want to get in it because they think it's easy, but when you realize it's not really that easy. It takes work. So what would you tell like a young person that wanted to get into that field that you're doing right now, that you get a chance to talk to people like that?
I mean, I think, even with social media, you see the end result, but the hammer, the screwdriver, the wrench, you don't necessarily see laying around. And I always, when people ask me, I tell them this story. When I finished grad school in 2011, I was living in my grandmother's basement. The basement apartment, it had, a kitchen, it had a living room, it had a closet, it had its own entrance, but it didn't have a stove. I had a double door fridge. The freezer side of it didn't freeze. It operated as a fridge, and the refrigerator side, it worked. And so for me, when I was in that position, I was on food stamps. Had a crock pot, had a George Foreman grill, had a microwave, had a toaster oven, and for me, it was grinding. It was freelancing. It was waiting for those checks to come in the mail. It was just really and truly finding a way to make ends meet and having a dream. In between that, I was adjuncting at a couple of colleges, and off and on was on unemployment, and just those early years were really spent relationship building. And that time at the Source magazine, when I wasn't making money, but it was an opportunity, I used it for the access, and then I learned kind of from the ground up what it took. I had an early start as a child. That's a blessing that I was able to be in locker rooms and meet people before I stepped foot on a college campus. But the real work really began in 2011 as I was moving around platforms, freelancing, going out in the street, and just freeing yourself, losing yourself in the moment, and just building rapport. So what I would encourage young people to do is don't look to the left, don't look to the right. Stay focused, stay centered, and find what it is that you like to do, and immerse yourself in that. Also, writing is not a lost art. I feel like even if you plan to be on television, you still have to know how to write scripts. And so for me, I really do feel like anybody who asks me, I'll tell them, write how you talk. Don't write how you think people want to hear you. Chris Broussard told me that years ago when I was an undergrad. I went to ESPN with him for like a weekend when I was an undergrad, and trailed him, and I wrote a feature story on him. This is when he was at ESPN, and I took a trip to the Bristol, Connecticut office, and we were in Connecticut together, and we just had a lot of detailed conversations just about the industry, the business, who's who, and the biggest gem that I got from that conversation is write how you talk. Don't write how you think people want to hear you speak.
Wow, that's deep. That's real deep, and something to keep in mind. Those that are tuned in to the A Train show, those that want to get into business, make sure that you keep up with your mentors and try to gain as much knowledge as you can, because when it's your turn, you're gonna have to definitely showcase what you've learned and what's been taught to you and what you need to do. Brandon Scooby Robertson is my guest here on the A Train show today. And we're just talking a bit about career and going through adversity and just trying to get to yourself to being where you are now. And I'm seeing that with you as of this moment. And I want to kind of get away from that now. I want to talk about the thing that you love talking about the most, and that's the NBA. Going into the 22-23 season, of course, we've had big storylines with the Boston Celtics and their situation, of course, with the New Jersey Nets and the Brooklyn Nets. I got New Jersey in the heart, man. So I'm sorry. I always got New Jersey in the heart for you. But what do you think right now is the biggest storyline going on in the NBA?
The biggest one, or the one people aren't talking about?
The one that they're not talking about. That should be big.
Minnesota Timberwolves.
Really?
I like that team. I think that team over the last couple of years, has really built something. You saw glimpses of it during the regular season last year. They did play a short stint in the postseason, and Pat Beverly made some folks think that they won a championship, jokingly, of course, but ultimately this summer they added some defensive prowess and Rudy Gobert, and I really do like this team. I think that Lynch has something special. And I know they're not named the Lakers. I know they're not named the Warriors, but I do like the Timberwolves. And I'll add that I think that the New Orleans Pelicans are another team over the last year and some change that they're overlooked. They brought in Willie Green as their coach. You have just a plethora of just guys that want to be there. And I really think that even before CJ McCollum came, you saw that team really take a leap last season. And then by the time the playoffs came, we brought some excitement there. And I think that the missing piece is Zion. I don't think he has to be the focal point of the team, in my opinion. Brandon Ingram is the face of that team. But I do think that they have pieces that are there that are impressive. So, those are the two teams that stand out to me. Of course, the Los Angeles Lakers, people are wondering what they're going to be. I personally think that they have the potential to be a fifth seed. I don't subscribe to the notion that they're just a playing team. I think that last year there were some issues there that needed to be worked out, specifically with coaching staff and the way that players responded to that coaching staff. COVID and injuries were also a huge thing. And, I know a lot of people on the internet, subscribe to Russell Westbrook slander every other day. But I think that, somebody who's won multiple MVPs, there's an adjustment that has to be made. Who handles the ball in crucial moments? Who's the playmaker? But I think anything that you're on with LeBron James, they're going to get the national attention. They just got to put it all together. And I think, a healthy Lakers team still is a competitive team. The Warriors are the champs. To be the champ, you got to beat the champ. But I think the West is a very competitive conference as is the Eastern Conference.
So you mentioned about the Lakers, and of course they had their issues where they wound up playing in the play-in tournament. And of course they weren't really responding too much to Frank Vogel. Is Darvin Ham the answer to make this team better, or they just have to play as a cohesive unit to becoming another potential championship run?
Both people I speak with within the Lakers organization, have shared with me that Darvin Ham is a player's dream. You look at Ham specifically, who was interviewed for head coaching positions the last couple of years, kind of similarly to how Juwan Howard got that practice in interviewing for coaching. And, for those who may not know, Rob Pelinka was a member of that Fab Five Michigan team with Jalen Rose and Juwan Howard. And, from everybody that I spoke with who know, Juwan Howard is really who Pelinka wanted, and Juwan doesn't want to leave that Michigan situation. Juwan, of course, has relationship with LeBron James going back to the Miami Heat days. But, when you look at Darvin Ham, his reputation as a player, his reputation as an assistant coach, it was only a matter of time before he caught on. But he really wowed Rob Pelinka and Jeanie Buss and the other brain trust within the Lakers during his interview process. His first interview, I'm told, he really wowed them with just his philosophy on how to handle Russell Westbrook, but also how to handle LeBron. And I think one thing that stood out from people that I've spoken with is when you look at Ham, the way that he handles players, because he's a former player, it gives certain folks Ty Lue vibes as it relates to just not enabling. Like, people that I've spoken with that teammates with LeBron says, don't get caught as a deer in the headlights with LeBron. He sees that kind of fanning out. He doesn't respect you. You kind of saw that with David Blatt. LeBron, respected David Blatt, but I think from people that I've spoken with, they just felt that, Blatt was in over his head. Ham is not in that situation. And I think in that situation with the Lakers, it's show and prove. I don't think many people outside of the Lakers organization are expecting much, but inside, insularly, the Lakers are ready to kind of prove a lot of people wrong and right that ship.
Yeah, you mentioned about David Blatt. I don't think he had much experience in the NBA, even as an assistant. And so when you're coming into a mix like this compared to a Darvin Ham, who has had assistant coach experience in the NBA, it's going to be a bit different. And it makes it for Darvin Ham, easier, when he gets to being a head coach of where he is right now. You spoke about the Timberwolves and Gobert. That also set the Jazz back because also they lost Donovan Mitchell to the Cavs. So at this point, I got to talk about it. The Jazz, who were once looked at as a contending team, is now back at the rebuilding stage, and it did it ever so quickly. What would have to turn around for them to get back to at least where they once was a playoff bound team?
I think the Jazz and the Timberwolves actually both got what they wanted in this vein. When you look at the Utah Jazz and the fact that they got Colin Sexton in Utah, you know, the folks that I've spoken with in Cleveland, just always felt that the room was too small for Sexton in Cleveland because you had so many other people there, specifically because they were just such an impressive surprise team. I think Cleveland was one of those teams that surprised many people in the East, kind of how the Pelicans and the Timberwolves surprised people out West. So when you look at Colin Sexton and just what he brings to the table in Utah, he gets his own team. I think that's the thing that really is going to open a lot of people's eyes, because from the national audience, I think people still don't know who Colin Sexton is, but they know he was in Cleveland. I think that when you look at the Utah Jazz, I think Danny Ainge has had a track record of creating, making trades and creating new teams from scratch, if you will. And I think that when you look at the Utah Jazz, I think at this point, the relationship ran its course with Donovan. It ran its course with Gobert, and I think they're writing a new chapter. And I don't think it'll take too long for them to kind of reconstruct a new nucleus. So I like the move. I felt like Donovan Mitchell did everything he was supposed to do in Utah, and was a lower pick in the draft. I remember talking to a buddy of mine who covered the Jazz, and I said to him, "Yo, who's somebody on the Jazz that would be a surprise addition, or who would be a sleeper pickup in my fantasy draft?" And they kept saying Donovan Mitchell. I was like, "Cool." This was like right before the season started, and I missed that acquisition. And he was like, I told you you should have got Donovan Mitchell. I think this was like 17, 18. Shout out to my boy Eric Woodyard over at ESPN. He was covering the Jazz at the time. Donovan Mitchell, to me, is really going to click on all cylinders. And from my guesstimation with Kevin Love, I feel like Cleveland, even without Donovan, was shining. I really felt like Lauri Markkanen was playing kind of stiff. Is he a 3? Is he a 4? Is he a 5? I've been around Lauri since his days with the Bulls, even during his pre-draft process. And I really think that move to Utah is going to help him, specifically because of how well he played this summer. I think ultimately, once he gets his druthers together, once he gets his health, once he gets his bearings straight in Utah, I really like the possibilities there. So I like the Jazz as an young, exciting team that may lose some games, but still an exciting team to watch. And they continue to kind of build on those pieces on the Tetris board. They'll be a competitive organization once again.
All right. Talking with Brandon Scoop B. Robinson over at Bally Sports, is talking a bit of the association here on the A-Train show. You mentioned about the Jazz. What about the Sacramento Kings? Now, that team has been trying to get out of the basement for a long time. Is this the year that they finally get out and potentially get into maybe even the play-in tournament?
Hey, man, you talk about the basement. Sometimes the basement is cool when you can get free Wi-Fi off your neighbors. And you can go upstairs and see what else everybody else got going on.
Thanks.
But in all actuality, I really do like Sabonis, and I'm expecting Sabonis to really I was playing 2K the other day, and I looked at the lineups, and I noticed that they had him in as a 5. I looked at him, and I know they often change lineups, especially when you first pick up the game. And I feel like he's such a tweener, but today's basketball is such a positionless situation anyway. The 5 could be a 3 that plays the 5, or a 4 that plays the 5, or a 5 that plays the 3. So Sabonis, to me, it just moves so many. He is literally I don't play chess, but I know the queen has his role, the king has his role, the pawn has his role. He can kind of morph into any of those on an as-needed basis. He can get you points, rebounds, assists. And I really do like the addition of Mike Brown. I spent some time with Mike Brown during the finals, former Golden State Warriors assistant coach. And he was all smiles and was really telling me how he was excited for this new venture. He still has a California license, but he moves over to Sacramento. And, he's in a situation where he had some reps kind of during the playoffs, coaching the Warriors during that time when Steve Kerr was out with COVID, and I think that practice and seeing his future employers, watching him coach, I think gave him some reps, gave him some reintroduction into the coaching sphere, and I think this is something that he's really rebranded for a long time. He got an early start during the Cavs days, the Lakers days. And then, kind of sat back and won some championships, and now he's re-upping that whole process as a head coach. And I really am happy for him.
Yeah, and I've always wanted to see how Mike Brown can handle another squad, such as a young team such as that, because I think he did that a little bit in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And now, but he has a totally different squad that he has to kind of build up, and he gets to kind of build that on his own now. A young team and trying to get them into playoff prowess. And I just hear so much about the Kings. What do they finally need to do just to get into the playoffs? And getting a coach like Mike Brown could be a big help. Also, I got to go over to the East because we talk about the Warriors, because the Warriors already look like they are primed for another championship again. Despite the fact of the adversity they had to go through the last 2-3 seasons to get to where they are now, it looked like they're primed and ready again for another championship. And nobody can really stop them.
Who's the team you said? You cut it out for a second.
Oh, I was talking about the Warriors.
Yeah, I think they are officially to today's NBA what the Spurs were a decade and a half ago. That YMCA, the old head YMCA team that these young guys think they can just cross them over and get to the basket, and they got something for them. I think when you look at that Spurs team from years ago, Ginobili, Duncan, Parker, head coach Greg Popovich, they all had something to show, prove. And I think with the Warriors, those guys took a year and a half, 2 years off to regroup, get their health right, and here they are now. But they've added some young pieces. You look at Jonathan. Yeah, you look at Jonathan Kuminga, and what he does. I remember chilling in the back during the finals and watching him play soccer in the locker room. Didn't even step foot on the court. He was just chilling. His footwork was crazy. His youth is there. Just you're in a good situation. But you all know this: the Warriors are Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green's team. But Kevon Looney, he became the defensive piece on the chessboard that they needed in the finals. And you look at a situation where you added. I talked about Kuminga. James Wiseman, was on the men last year, and now he's in a situation where he can compete with these young boys. Then you look at just the Warriors just have they have a knack to be where they need to be when they need to be there, and they did it last season without Klay, and Klay came in probably in the new year, got his rest. So I like the Warriors. I think the Warriors are going to be there. They're the champs. But I do think that in the Western Conference, I think there's so much talent. I think that when you look at both the West and the East, gone are the days where it's a Lakers-Celtics rivalry championship game every year. Gone are the days where it's Cavs-Warriors. It could be anybody. So Warriors Warriors will be there, but there are some other competitive teams in the West. I think the Denver Nuggets are competitive. I think that they added some pieces this offseason. Jamal Murray is back. The Clippers adding John Wall and having a healthy Kawhi and a healthy Paul George. Like, there's just so much talent out west, out east. But I still like the Warriors, man. The Warriors are going to be there, but there are some other teams who may have their number as well.
Yeah, because the team we didn't mention was the Memphis Grizzlies, who faced them in the playoffs last season. And if it wasn't for a Ja Morant injury, that outcome could have been a little bit different. But they're going to be hungry because now they saw the Warriors get past them despite what happened with Ja, and they want a chance at a championship to bring to Memphis. And, Ja is one of those guys that get looked at as, what are you going to do now that you've been injured, now that you've seen what happened? What are you going to do to start your 2022-23 season and try to get to the promised land in June? That's going to be the big key when we're looking at it for the season.
They don't hurt you, and I like the pieces that they added this offseason. I was sad to see D'Anthony Melton go. I think he's going to help Philadelphia immensely. They just had so much guard help out in that squad. But I like the fact that Danny Green, a guy that's won championships, is able to stay relevant and young. Once he gets his health in order and he does come back, I think this will be the anti-Andre Iguodala. If you remember, Iguodala wanted out of Memphis and was ultimately traded, and a couple of seasons ago. I talked to Danny a couple of weeks ago, and he told me he's just getting settled into Memphis, and he's excited to give it a go. Also spent some time with him this summer, and his lip is starting to go away. It's going to take a little time to get it right, but I really do like this Memphis team. I like Taylor Jenkins. I tell this story all the time. How many coaches do you know in today's NBA that can tell you that they remember AI's heyday in Philadelphia and speaks glowingly about it? He was a student a grad assistant, I believe, at UPenn. He knows the Philadelphia area well, and told me his first gaming system, if I'm not mistaken, was Atari.
Oh, wow.
So the coaching face, or the faces of coaches are getting younger, and he definitely connects with players. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen Taylor Jenkins and the wrestler Triple H in the same room. How about you?
No, I haven't. But now that you're giving me the image, I can see it. I can really see that. Like, it's so tough. Like, it'll be interesting to see if Memphis does win a championship, because usually Triple H would give WWE titles to championship teams, is seeing the both of them. And when he receives that, everybody look at him like, oh my God, y'all look like y'all could have been twins. So the resemblance is there.
And we're talking the game era Triple H. We're not talking Hunter Hearst Helmsley. We're talking the game era. We're not talking DX. We're talking about the game.
Exactly, man. That resemblance is uncanny. Talking it over with Brandon Scooby Robinson right here on the A Train Show. We talking about the NBA. We talking about the West. Got to talk about the East and your team. Well, the team. Let me say this. It ain't your team. This is the team that everybody keeps busting your chops for on social media, and that's the Brooklyn Nets. The situation over there. This whole ordeal with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and Steve Nash even comes right there. It is. You get hashtag no sources.
Clip that part. There you go. You were saying
hashtag no sources. Hey, they have been on you for a minute. Like, it just is profound to me. And I'll sit back and I'll be watching. I'll be right there on social media like, why they keep messing with this dude like this? Like, for real, man. Like, lay off. But they think you don't know nothing. That's what's even more funny to me. But I have to ask, the situation is going on in Brooklyn. It's a mess, but what can they do to bridge the gap and bring it back together?
Just play.
That's pretty simple as that.
Just play. I mean, you got a situation in Brooklyn where you got two guys that can legitimately play point guard, and Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving. Ben Simmons in that system is more magic. than LeBron. He only has to get you 15 to 20 points a game, maybe sometimes 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 10 assists. Like, he can fill up a stat sheet, but I think where they really benefit from Ben Simmons is his defense. I think that was an upgrade in comparison to James Harden. He's James Harden light, in my opinion. He can play make, he can score, he can get to the basket, and I don't think you have to solely depend on his shooting. He can get to the cup and get any shot he wants. In that regard, I think too much has been made about the 3-point shot. I think he's in a better situation amongst guys that are pros, guys who have been there. You know what Kai can do. You know what Kev can do. It's a matter of Kai, number one, being healthy, and number two, being in the correct mental space. And, you know, like I've told you all summer, Kai wants to be in Brooklyn, but it had to make sense. And there were some things that needed to take place behind the scenes as far as just guys being on the same page, and they've done that this summer. Kevin Durant is in a situation, I believe, his 16th year in the league. He's definitely been to the finals multiple times. I know he said online he's old as shit, but at the end of the day, the thing that the Nets benefit from outside of that big three is the pieces that are healthy. Seth Curry, Joe Harris, and then in addition to that, you have Sumner, who could spell Kyrie at points at the point guard position. And then in addition to that, you also brought in TJ Warren, a guy that's not going to be ready till November. We're not saying he's got to be bubble TJ, but what I am saying to you is gives you more scoring punch. Now, when you look at the Brooklyn Nets overall, they are missing a couple of things. Dwight Howard does have interest in potentially signing with that team. I know that the WWE has been wooing him. I know that you do have Nicholas Claxton, who I think is really going to benefit from playing alongside Ben Simmons this season. But they're still a little short at the big man position. And in addition to that, they need a scoring leader, and they need a vet. I talked about Danny Green being that vet in Memphis. In that same vein, the Nets need a Carmelo Anthony. The Nets have talked about him in the front office lightly, I'm told. And, you know, I know that at some points the Boston Celtics were deliberating on that when Danilo Gallinari got hurt. Recently, Carmelo has been going to Baltimore Ravens games. He's been given awards to Bad Bunny at the MTV Awards, but his name will be called at a certain point. But I'll tell you what, if not Brooklyn, there are teams that can still be beneficial from his services. And the names that I do here are the Cleveland Cavaliers. In addition to the Cavs, I've heard Miami Heat. I've heard the Golden State Warriors. So there are teams that are discussing it, but they're a little off from bringing them in. But I do expect Melo to at some point find his way to Brooklyn or a team that is a championship caliber team. But in the meantime, players that are on that Brooklyn Nets team, once they get their fine tuning and get their things in order, I really do think they're going to surprise and impress a lot of people. And I think it starts with coaching, players, front office, all being on the same page.
Got to talk a bit about the runner-up of the NBA Finals, is the Boston Celtics. Of course, you had the Ime Udoka situation that's been going on. But with him out for the season, does that really change the dynamic, or can they still use an Udoka system of sorts to potentially maintain and possibly get another championship run and try to get back to the finals again this season?
So I actually, Bally Sports Network on Wednesday will exclusively be dropping an interview with one of the co-owners of the Boston Celtics, and Amelia Fazzolari. And she and I spoke at length about just the expectation of the team coming into this season. And one of the things that I think is known, but it's not really discussed a ton, is the addition of Malcolm Brogdon. Independent thought from what she said, just my thoughts. When you look at Marcus Smart, I know a lot of people criticize him, but you can't downplay his defensive energy, his energy overall. But Malcolm Brogdon as a tall guard, I really think that he is going to wow a lot of people on the national stage with his ability to kind of bring folks together. I do think that this head coach, or the interim head coach that they have, is a guy that comes from Brad Stevens' era of before he became a team president. But really and truly, the thing that really sticks out to me is Jason Tatum's development this offseason. Even more, he was already a talented player. I've watched some tape of him in preseason, and his ball control, his ability to get the cup in different ways. I'm really impressed with. In addition to that, when I look at Jaylen Brown's ability, I think a lot of people act as if he's just a throwaway, and he'd be a superstar on a lot of other teams. And I think that when you look at Jaylen Brown and his ability to just be Jaylen Brown, I think he's going to continue to be Jaylen Brown this coming season. And I think that the Boston Celtics will be in the mix, just like the Milwaukee Bucks, just like the Brooklyn Nets. I think that the Celtics will be there. I think while you do miss Ime as the head coach, I think the mentality that those guys bring. I remember talking to Al Horford during the finals about just when the light switch came on, and he said it came on at the midpoint in a game against Philadelphia. And those guys really were like, we really can compete in the NBA's Eastern Conference. And the Celtics, like the Lakers, were in a situation where COVID, injuries, and more really kind of knocked them off the A train, and they weren't able to sit, in coach class, or I don't know, they weren't able to sit in the premium seats because they just dealt with a lot of injuries. So you got to kind of reel them in, let them have a dope theme music like yourself, and you just got to kind of just get back in the saddle. And I think the Boston Celtics are a competitive group, but they know what it's like and they know what it's going to take. They took the road less travel last offseason, and here we are.
You too much, man. You too much. So I got to ask about my team. My team is the Chicago Bulls. Always been, always have, always will be. And is this a team that could really surprise some people? I know they did last season, but losing Lonzo Ball, at least for a few weeks, it's not as bad, like when they lost Patrick Williams and stuff. And then when they got him back in the rotation, they started looking more like an effective team. Of course, Alex Caruso was out for a bit too, and injuries kind of really bit the Bulls. But is this team a grain for a potential championship run, or what kind of pieces do they need to get to that stage?
I think the matchup against the Milwaukee Bucks in the playoffs definitely gave them a level of confidence. When we look at the Bulls, we think of the heyday of Michael and Scotty and Horace and Dennis and Phil. And we've seen surprises and glimpses of just excitement, when they drafted Eddie Curry and Tyson Chandler, and they won number 2 and number 3 respectively. But I think this Bulls team, to me, has made the right moves as far as they're bringing in the right front office staff, and also Billy Donovan. I give a lot of credit to allowing his stars to be stars. I think last season you dealt with Zach and his knee issues last season, and then now you got Lonzo in a situation where he's got some issues. But I'll tell you, one of the smartest decisions that the Bulls ever made that's going to pay dividends going into the season. If you go back to my reporting back in 2020, the Bulls and the Pelicans were having conversations about potentially bringing Lonzo to Chicago for Kobe White. And the Bulls didn't just say no. They said, hell no. Where you don't have Lonzo and you still got Kobe White. Kobe speaks reverently about this team in conversations that Kobe and I have had over the years. We both are brand ambassadors with Zenni Optical. And just in small talk, one of the things that he and I laughed about was, I said, yo, what's it like playing for the Bulls this year? He goes, shit, when you play alongside DeMar, Zach, Vooch, everything just becomes a little bit easier.
It does. It looks like it.
I think when you look at Lonzo, the injuries have been what they were. But I still think the Bulls definitely are cool. And I think one of the surprises from last season when Lonzo was out was the emergence of Ayo Dosunmu, Chicago homegrown, and really showed up and showed out for that team. And I also think Andre Drummond fits that team better than I think he did in Brooklyn. I really did like his play in Philadelphia. Of course, he was casualty of war in that move for Ben Simmons and James Harden, but I think the Bulls have just added some pieces. They don't have to put boulders and rocks in their arsenal. They just put tiny little pebbles in it. Pebbles add up.
Yeah. And I seen that. I know at the beginning stages of the season, their defense was phenomenal. Like even when Lonzo was on the floor, you know, they were moving. When it was him, Caruso, DeMar, Zach, it was like, oh my goodness, because they were so long-armed. You know, they were able to get their hands on the pass and they could run the break because they were definitely good at running the break too. And I know Nikola is not a defender. I get it. I understand it. But I'm going to need to see us a little bit more defensively from him. You know, even if that means he has to just take charges, you know, be like Dwayne Schnitz's, God rest his soul. I mean, God rest his soul. Rest in peace. Dwayne Schnitz's from Eddie when he played Yvonne. Take some charges, man. Come on, man.
What's a black hole? Remember he said that? What's a hoe?
I'm not going to touch that. I'm not touching that.
Okay.
I'm not touching it. I'm not going to touch that. Not going to touch
That's what he said in the movie.
He did. He did say that.
Black hole. Not a black hole. A black hole.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. We got to do most of that. I know we could talk about the Bucks, but we know that the Bucks are good where they are right now. We do know we do have surprise teams coming up. You know, of course, the Miami Heat, they're going to be in the mix as well. And how come Udonis Haslem won't go to coaching? What's the difference between what he's doing now and putting on the jersey just to say I played 20 years in the NBA?
He is a highly paid assistant coach that wears the uniform. Leave him alone.
I get it. Okay. All right. I'm saying that's all I need to know.
Jerry Stackhouse did it. Darrell Armstrong did it. And he did it. Leave the boy alone. If
no problem. I'm leaving him alone. All right, as we sit here, early October, it's going to pretty much be the way too early look at who could be in June. Who would you have as your two teams to face off in the finals?
I hate this question.
I know, but you got to talk about it though.
The Brooklyn Nets and the Los Angeles Clippers.
And I'm not gonna hold it to you. I'm not gonna hold that to you. Okay? Because one, I know how you felt about it, and and it's too early. So maybe by the time All-Star break roll around, we'll see what everybody looking like. And then by the time April come, we'll have a better opportunity to figure that one out. But just off of spitball, and I wanted to hear what you had to say about it. That's all, man.
Don't let me be wrong on the internet.
Oh! Hey, I have to give a shout out to one Ashley Baker. She's the podcaster of Nothing But Sports. She would love your picks. She would love, especially that Clipper pick. Oh my goodness, she would just go be joyous over that Clipper choice. But let that be the correct answer. I kid you not. I'm losing it. I'm losing my mind on that. Goodness gracious. All right, before you go, tell my listeners where they can find your no sources on social media.
Twitter at Scoop B, Instagram Scoop B, and more than anything else, you get everything that's going on with me. And I did not mention, Scoop B Radio. We garner 10 million streams annually. We are revamping that as well, the website at large. But Valley Sports is where you can find my day-to-day work, as well as Bovada, content creator, Benny Optical. We're in there like swimwear, and Spotify. New season of Spotify. Spotify's Scoop B Sources on the Spotify Live app coming to a phone near you beginning October 18th.
Scoop B Sources? Wait a minute. You ain't got none.
Not a one.
You ain't got no sources. Remember?
None. I know nobody either.
And you know why?
You're playing on the internet all day, just playing.
It's comical, and I love it, man. But hey, Scooby, thank you, man, for dropping some gems, dropping some knowledge, and of course, you're always welcome at the A Train Show, man. And I'm hoping Brooklyn and the Clippers get to the finals just because of you.
And perhaps we'll catch Rihanna.
We'll have to do that next time because we ain't got so far into that. We'll do that another time. So you actually got away with it this time. You got away with it. You got away.
There you go.
You got away. And you seem to know, you know what you're doing. So, yeah, that was a story that I wanted to talk about, but we got so deep into this NBA thing, I ain't going to even touch it. But definitely the time, hey, guess what? February's coming up.
Yes, it is.
February's coming up, and she's going to be handling the Super Bowl, and let's have some fun when we get to that time period.
The Fenty Bowl.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. We'll definitely do that. Scooby, thanks, man. And of course, you can always ride on the A Train Show. And as you can see behind me, it says Scooby was here.
I was. We out.
Appreciate it so much, man.
My man. Thank you for the opportunity to be myself.
No doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Brandon Scooby Robinson. And hope that you enjoyed this edition of the A Train Show. Hey, make sure that you go. You can follow on Facebook at the A Train Show. You can also go to our YouTube channel at the A Train Show as well. All right. Make sure you come on back. Come on back for another ride. I'll have another great guest in store for you. All right. It is, as always, the A Train Show. Hey, and don't forget, folks, without you in the world would be a less friendly place. I gotta remember that because that was a dope line. I found that over at Panda Express. All right. So we catch you next time for another edition of the A Train Show.